The email from Sarah popped up just as I was settling into my new office at Wilson & Associates corporate headquarters. Hey sis, guess what? I told Dad about the regional manager position opening up here. He's so excited. Finally a chance to show you how a real business professional operates. Maybe you can learn something if you're lucky. After all, someone has to carry on the family legacy, and we both know it won't be you. Saxo. I leaned back in my chair, taking in the view of downtown Chicago from my 35th floor executive suite. The morning sun glinted off neighboring skyscrapers as I contemplated my sister's latest attempt to diminish me. My name is Emma Chen, and at 35, I had just become the youngest director of operations in Wilson Associates history. Not that my family knew that. As far as they were concerned, I was still a family disappointment, the one who had wasted her Stanford MBA by taking mid-level corporate jobs instead of joining Dad's precious manufacturing company. Sarah, my older sister by 2 years, had followed the expected path. She'd gone straight to work for Dad after college, climbing the ranks through pure nepotism while I chose to make my own way. In their eyes, this made her the successful one, the one who understood real business. What they didn't know was that each of those meaningless corporate jobs had been carefully chosen, building my expertise in operational efficiency and organizational transformation. While they dismissed my career choices, I was quietly becoming one of the most sought-after executives in the industry. When Wilson & Associates headhunted me to oversee their entire Midwest operation, I hadn't told my family. What would be the point? They'd never shown interest in my achievements before. But now, as I read Sarah's gloating email, an interesting situation was developing. My father, the mighty Richard Chen, CEO of Chen Manufacturing, was apparently planning to interview for a position that would report directly to me. My phone buzzed. Speak of the devil. Emma, my father's stern voice came through without preamble. Your sister tells me you're working some low-level position at Wilson & Associates. I spun my chair to face the window, keeping my voice neutral. Hello to you too, Dad. Yes, I work at Wilson & Associates. Well, I suppose that's better than your last job. Listen, I've decided to make a change. Chen Manufacturing is running smoothly enough that I can step back, let your sister take more control. I'm going to interview for the regional manager position at Wilson. I bit back a smile. Oh, what brought this on? It's time I showed you how real business is done. Emma, you've been playing at corporate jobs long enough. Maybe seeing me in action will finally teach you something worthwhile. The condescension in his voice was nothing new. I've been hearing it for 15 years, ever since I announced I wouldn't be joining the family business. That's interesting, Dad. When's your interview? Monday morning. Sarah set it up through her contact in HR. Just a formality, really. With my experience, they'd be foolish not to hire me. I glanced at the org chart on my desk, where the regional manager position reported directly to me. Well, good luck with that. I'm sure it will be enlightening. After hanging up, I sat quietly for a moment thinking, I could stop this now. One call to HR and the interview would be canceled. But something made me hesitate. For 15 years, I'd listened to their dismissive comments about my career choices, watched them praise Sarah's mediocre achievements while ignoring my successes. Maybe it was time for a lesson in humility. My intercom buzzed. Ms. Chen, your 10 a.m. is here. The staff meeting to review Monday's interviews. Thank you, Jenny. I'll be right there. I gathered my files, including the stack of resumes for the regional manager position. My father's was on top, forwarded by HR with a note. Special interest candidate, referred by Sarah Chen, marketing. The same Sarah who had spent years telling anyone who would listen that I didn't understand real business. Who had orchestrated this whole situation thinking she was setting me up for another humiliation. Walking into the conference room, I saw my management team already assembled. They looked at me expectantly, these professionals who had quickly come to respect my leadership despite my relative youth. Good morning, everyone, I said, taking my seat at the head of the table. Let's discuss Monday's interviews. We have several candidates for the regional manager position, including one that I think will be particularly interesting. I laid out my father's resume, watching my team review his qualifications. On paper, he was impressive. 30 years of experience running his own company. But I knew the reality, outdated management practices, resistance to change, and an ego that far outweighed his actual abilities. His interview is scheduled for Monday at 9 a.m., I said. I'll handle it personally. My HR director raised an eyebrow. Are you sure? Given the family connection. Actually, I replied, I think it's essential that I conduct this interview. Sometimes the most important lessons come from unexpected sources. As the meeting continued, I thought about Monday morning. My father would walk in expecting to dazzle some middle manager with his experience and authority. Instead, he would find himself face to face with the daughter he had underestimated for so long. Sarah's words echoed in my mind. Someone has to carry on the family legacy. Well, dear sister, I thought maybe it's time to show you both exactly what that legacy could have been if you'd bothered to notice what was right in front of you. My phone buzzed with another text from Sarah. Dad's so excited about Monday. Try not to embarrass yourself when he gets the job. You might actually learn something from him. I smiled, tucking the phone away. Monday was going to be very interesting indeed. Monday morning arrived crisp and clear. I stood at my office window, watching the early morning sun paint the Chicago skyline in shades of gold. In exactly 1 hour, my father would arrive for his interview, still completely unaware that his potential boss was the daughter he had dismissed for so long. My phone buzzed. Sarah again. Dad just left for the interview. He's wearing his power suit. Try not to drool too much when you see what a real executive looks like. I set the phone down without replying. Let her enjoy these last few moments of smugness. Jenny's voice came through the intercom. Ms. Chen, your father has arrived. He's waiting in the main conference room. Thank you, Jenny. Give me 5 minutes. I checked my reflection in the window. My charcoal gray suit was impeccable, my expression composed. I had waited 15 years for this moment. It needed to be perfect. The walk to the conference room felt surreal. Through the glass walls, I could see my father sitting there, radiating his usual confidence. He was reviewing some papers, probably rehearsing the speech he prepared about his vast experience and qualifications. I opened the door. Good morning, Mr. Chen. I'm the Director of Operations. Thank you for coming in today. The moment my father looked up and saw me, his face went through a fascinating series of expressions: confusion, disbelief, and finally, something close to panic. Emma, he managed, his voice unusually weak. What are you doing here? I sat down across from him, placing his resume on the table between us. As I said, I'm the Director of Operations for Wilson and Associates. All regional managers report directly to me. I gave him a pleasant smile. Shall we begin the interview? He stared at me, mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. The mighty Richard Chen, for once completely lost for words. This must be some kind of joke, he finally said, his voice hardening. Where is the real interviewer? I assure you, this is no joke. I've been director here for 3 months. Now, I opened his resume. Let's discuss your qualifications for the regional manager position. I'm not doing this, he stood up abruptly. I won't be interviewed by my own daughter. That's certainly your choice, I said calmly, though I wonder what Sarah will think when you tell her you walked out of the interview. After all, she's been telling everyone how you're going to show me how real business is done. That hit home. He slowly sat back down, his face flushed with a mixture of anger and embarrassment. Fine, he growled. Let's get this over with. For the next hour, I conducted the most thorough interview of my career. Every claim on his resume, every achievement he bragged about over the years, I questioned all of it. His answers revealed exactly what I'd always suspected. His success had come more from inheriting a stable business than from any real innovation or leadership. Your company's growth has been relatively flat for the past 5 years, I noted, reviewing the financial reports I'd pulled. Can you explain your strategy for adapting to changing market conditions? He shifted uncomfortably. We maintain traditional values. Not everyone needs to chase the latest trends. I see, and your employee turnover rate is significantly higher than industry standard. How do you approach talent retention? People these days don't understand loyalty, he huffed. Not like our generation. With each question, his confident facade cracked a little more. This wasn't going anything like he'd expected. He'd walked in thinking he would dazzle everyone with his experience, maybe even end up as my boss somehow. Instead, he was being systematically exposed by the daughter he'd never taken seriously. My phone buzzed, another text from Sarah. How's Dad doing? Betting he's got the job already. Can't wait to see your face when he becomes your boss. If she only knew. Finally, I closed my notebook and looked at my father directly. Thank you for your time, Mr. Chen. We'll be in touch with our decision by the end of the week. He stood up, straightening his tie with shaking hands. This was unnecessary, Emma. You could have told me. Like you told me when you and Sarah planned this little ambush. I kept my voice level. Besides, I thought you wanted to show me how real business is done. His face darkened. You think you're very clever, don't you? Sitting up here in your fancy office, thinking you've proven something. Actually, Dad, I think I've proven exactly what I've been trying to tell you for 15 years, that I understand business better than you ever gave me credit for. He grabbed his briefcase. I suppose you're going to tell Sarah about this? No, I smiled. I think I'll let you handle that conversation. As he stormed out, I sat back in my chair, letting out a long breath. The interview had gone exactly as I'd expected, revealing the truth about my father's outdated business practices and inflated sense of his own abilities. But this wasn't just about humbling my father. It was about something bigger, something that would become clear very soon. Because what neither he nor Sarah knew was that this interview was just the beginning. The real bombshell was still to come. The week after my father's interview was surprisingly quiet. No calls from him, no gloating texts from Sarah. The silence was telling. He clearly hadn't informed her about who had conducted his interview. I spent that time finalizing my real plan. The folder on my desk contained something much more significant than a rejection letter. A complete analysis of Chen Manufacturing's vulnerabilities, along with a proposal for Wilson and Associates to acquire the company. My father's interview had confirmed what I'd suspected. His company was stagnating, failing to adapt to modern business practices. The acquisition would be a bargain for Wilson and Associates, and I had already secured board approval. Friday morning, I called a meeting with my executive team. As you know, I began, we've been looking to expand our manufacturing division. I believe I found the perfect opportunity. I laid out the proposal, watching their faces as they realized the full scope of what I was suggesting. Chen Manufacturing wasn't just any acquisition target. It was a strategic move that would consolidate our market position while modernizing an outdated but valuable business. The current CEO, I continued, keeping my tone professional, is looking to step back. His successor lacks the experience to lead the company through necessary modernization. The timing is perfect. After the meeting, I sent 2 emails. The first went to my father. Dear Mr. Chen, thank you for interviewing for the regional manager position. While your experience is impressive, we decided to go in a different direction. However, I would like to schedule a meeting with you and Sarah next Monday to discuss a different opportunity. Best regards, Emma Chen, Director of Operations, Wilson and Associates. The second went to Sarah. Dear Sis, looking forward to seeing you and Dad on Monday. There's something important we need to discuss. Emma. Monday morning arrived, and I stood in the same conference room where I'd interviewed my father. This time, both he and Sarah sat across from me, Sarah still wearing her smug smile, clearly unaware of what had transpired during the interview. Before we begin, Sarah said sweetly, shouldn't we wait for the director? I'm sure they'll want to be part of this conversation. I smiled. I am the director, Sarah. In fact, I've been running this entire division for the past 3 months. The color drained from her face. She turned to our father, who wouldn't meet her eyes. Dad, did you know about this? He found out last week, I said during his interview. Which, by the way, confirmed everything I needed to know about Chen Manufacturing's current state. I opened the folder in front of me. Your company is in trouble. Outdated systems, high turnover, declining market share. You've been coasting on reputation and old relationships, but that won't work much longer. How dare you? Sarah started, but I cut her off. Wilson and Associates is prepared to make an offer to acquire Chen Manufacturing. The silence that followed was deafening. This is absurd, my father finally said, but I could see the uncertainty in his eyes. He knew I was right about the company's situation. Is it? I slid the analysis across the table. Your profits have been declining for 3 years. Your major clients are starting to look elsewhere. Sarah's marketing initiatives have failed to attract new business. You need to steal more than we do. Sarah grabbed the papers, her hands shaking as she read. This isn't, you can't. Actually, I can. The board has already approved the acquisition. All we need is your agreement. I leaned forward. And before you reject this out of pride, consider the alternatives. You can either sell to us now, on favorable terms, or watch the company decline until you're forced to sell for much less. My father was silent, reading through the proposal with growing resignation. He had built his company from what his father had left him, just as his father had done before. But he had failed to evolve, failed to prepare for the future, and deep down, he knew it. The terms are fair, I continued. More than fair. You'll both retain positions within the new structure, reporting to the regional management team, who, by the way, will report to me. Sarah looked like she might be sick. You planned this. All of it. No, Sarah, you planned this. You and Dad thought you could humiliate me by having him come in and show me how real business is done. Instead, you showed me exactly why Chen Manufacturing needs new leadership. I stood up, smoothing my skirt. Take the weekend to review the proposal. But remember, this offer won't be on the table forever. As they left, my father paused at the door. All these years, he said quietly, we thought we were teaching you about business. You did teach me something, Dad. You taught me exactly what not to do. 3 months later, the acquisition was complete. Chen Manufacturing became a division of Wilson and Associates, with me overseeing its transformation into a modern, efficient operation. Sarah stayed on in marketing, though now she had to justify her decisions to a board that cared about results, not family ties. My father officially retired, though he occasionally consulted on special projects when I asked him to. The family dynamics had shifted permanently. No more condescending comments about my career choices, no more assumptions about my capabilities. They had finally learned what I had known all along, that understanding real business meant more than following tradition or relying on the family name. One evening, as I stood in my office looking out at the city lights, I received a final text from Sarah. You know what's ironic? All those years we thought you were running away from the family legacy. Turns out you were the only one who knew how to save it. I smiled, tucking my phone away. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about proving that you were right all along. And sometimes the student becomes the teacher in ways no one ever expected.